Welcome to Status Coup. My name is Jason Peters, and today we're in State College, PA, in the offices of the Daily Collegian as a part of our Swing State reporting tour. With me is business manager for the Daily Collegian at Penn State University, Zach O'Brien.
Nice to be here. Appreciate it.
So, Zach, I wanted to speak to you about an incident that happened a few weeks ago, late September.
Yes.
With the paper being pulled from the shelves because of a dispute. I might get pieces of the story wrong, but walk us through it.
Yeah.
You guys ran an ad relevant to the presidential election.
Yes.
For Kamala Harris.
Correct.
Regular ad.
Mm-hmm.
Paid for.
Yep.
It wasn't like you guys made a decision to run the ad.
Nope.
It was purchased. You put it out, and what happened?
Yeah, so I could kind of go into a little bit. So, previously we've done things for the state Senate, or for the Congress, like John Fetterman running for the Senate spot. We've done political advertising before. And also, to give you a little backstory, the university kind of cut funding with us. So, advertising is really where we try to, kind of wedge that gap a little bit. And, part of that's part of, political advertising. So I made the decision to run a Kamala Harris ad. It was paid for by the Harris administration. It said that underneath, on the bulletin, on our poster boards that were on our news racks. And ultimately the university said it violated a couple policies and kind of took matters in their own hands and took our newspapers as well as our posters.
So when did this happen?
Yeah, so this was 2 weeks ago. It was on a Wednesday night. They sent out an email. The university sent out an email to their janitors across the facilities to basically take down the posters and to take the news racks as well as take the newspapers as well. We, as an organization, had no idea about it. We didn't really know that. We thought there was going to be more communication between us and the university to kind of figure out, and hone in on the problem. But the university ultimately took matters into their own hands without letting us know and took down our news racks, our posters, and our newspapers.
So they took down the racks, posters, and newspapers. How many places?
Correct. So there's 35 news locations, or there's 35 news racks across campus. 10 of them actually house posters, and 9 of them were running actual posters on the news racks at that time. There was 3 Kamala Harris ad ones, and then there were 6 voter registration ones that were ultimately taken. And then our newspapers, we have 5,000 newspapers distributed across all those news racks, and ultimately those were taken as well.
And now we're here with Amy Schaer, the editor-in-chief for the Daily Collegian. Welcome, Status Coup.
Thank you, yeah.
So after speaking with him, I learned about all of the measures that Penn State has taken to kind of weaken this 137-year-old institution. As editor-in-chief, have you felt unnerved by the incident of the papers being pulled over the Kamala Harris ads?
Yeah, it was definitely upsetting to me and a lot of our journalists. I think it was definitely an overreaction and an issue of censorship. I think by removing all of the papers when we were only violating policy on 9 of our newsstands, removing all of the papers in all 35 of our newsstands seemed like a drastic overreaction and almost sent a message to us that they don't respect student journalism or student leaders. So it was definitely very unnerving and upsetting.
Have the other journalists that work with you brought this up or been concerned about reporting on certain stories since this has happened, or felt like maybe there would be repercussions for anything?
I would say our journalists definitely haven't let it stop them in terms of what they're reporting on. They're still continuing to pursue hard-hitting investigative pieces, hard news pieces, holding the university accountable. We at the Collegian really value student journalism as a way to hold the university accountable, and I think we play a really important role in helping them be more transparent with the community and really looking into issues that go undercovered, especially within the university. So I wouldn't say that it's affected our staff's ability and drive to pursue stories, but it's definitely hurt their confidence in terms of how much the university values them and how much they respect student journalism. I think a lot of people were very discouraged by the fact that they removed all of our newsstands without speaking to us first, and are still kind of questioning since we haven't gotten an explanation yet from the university.
So when everything was pulled, it was, and you got told you were doing violations. Mm-hmm. Had these violations been things that were perfectly fine for the last year or so?
Yeah, we've been advertising on those racks on our stands for 2 years with no issue. So I think that this is an issue of selective enforcement of university advertising policy. From what they pointed out, it does seem like we were in violation of the policy. But what I would question is why they're selectively enforcing it and why they didn't inform us 2 years ago when we began running advertisements. Also, in combination with the fact that they happened to pull all of our things when we ran a political ad, seems like there's some deeper issue here. Again, they told us that we were just kind of violating university policy in general, and that's why the advertisements were pulled, but never really offered an explanation as to why the stands without advertisements on them were pulled.
And in the past, you guys had ran political ads of a similar variety with no issue?
We've run political ads in our paper and on our website. I'm not sure whether or not we've run them on the stands themselves, which is what they seem to have the issue with. They did tell us in a statement that they sent to the Collegian that they had no issue with running political advertising in the physical paper, just on like the news racks themselves. So when they sent us the notice, it was after the stands had already been removed, telling us that we were violating university policy, which I don't think is standard practice. I think typically university organizations, entities, even though Collegian is not necessarily a university organization, we're still kind of affiliated, we're in a university building. I think it would have been a lot more respectful for them to inform us that we were violating policy and given us the chance to remove the advertisements before deciding to just remove all of our newsstands from campus.
Well, this student-ran paper has been around more than 100 years.
Yeah.
It's been something I've known about for many years. I was disheartened to hear that your funding was cut in half, then it was completely cut.
Yeah.
Which kind of drove you to get more political advertising or advertising in general, try to bring in that money. And then when you do that, they then take down all of your papers. Does it feel like the Daily Collegian is not wanted by the university?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that was their intention by doing this. They won't communicate with us, really, so I'm not sure. They haven't sent any official statement journalistically on the record to any of our reporters. So I do think it sends that message that they don't view us as important. I do think there are a lot of people in the state college community that really care about us and really value our journalism. And I do feel like there's a lot of professors and faculty members in the College of Communications that value us. And I feel like, for the most part, the College of Communications supports the Collegian and values the work that we do. But on the larger university scale, it doesn't feel like we're being very respected right now.
So what was the reason given to you for the papers being pulled off the shelves?
Sure.
Yeah, how was it explained?
So we still don't have an answer on why the newspapers were pulled. There is no policy by the university basically saying that you can't advertise within the newspaper on university property. There's no place that says that it actually allows for it. So the question that we're raising is, number one, why were those newspapers taken if there's no policy saying that we can't advertise paid advertisements, right? But when it comes to the news racks, they said that it violated policy Ad 27 and policy Ad 02, basically saying that those news racks were on campus locations and we can't advertise for us on university property. It has to be on a university bulletin board, is what they said. And I'll be honest, we're still getting clarification. This has been a gray area.
I was going to say, I'm a smart man and a journalist. I don't even know what that means.
I know.
So it has to be on a bulletin. It can't be in a rack.
Correct. And we've had it on the racks previous years. So we've done, we've ran them on those news racks prior, on those posters. But for them to say that it now needs to be on a bulletin board that says general information that you'll see across all of campus is a little shocking because we've done it previous years before with no issues.
So when the racks were removed and anything, was the Kamala Harris ad even mentioned?
The ad in the newspaper or on the
Yeah.
poster?
Did the university cite that as why they did this?
No. So they, like I said, that's still a gray area. They still have not given us a reason why they took our newspapers. Like I said, there is no policy saying that you can't advertise paid advertisements in a newspaper on university locations. It was mainly the news rack that caused the issue, it seems like. So that's kind of why we're still raising the question of why were our newspapers taken, right? Because, you could take the news racks. I wish this, in a perfect world, they would have emailed us. I would have had them taken down the posters, and we could have kept our newspapers up. Ultimately, they decided that it was in the best of their ability to take the newspapers off the shelves, kind of hindering, the First Amendment. But
Does the university and the paper, what is the relationship? Is this independent? Is it not?
yeah, so we are a completely, fully independent student-run news outlet. We kind of take pride in that as well. We weren't always. We were affiliated with Penn State, and then a couple years ago, I want to say 2 years ago, we were told that we were going to lose funding from the university. It was going to go down to about half of our funding, and then this year it's finally zero. So we don't have any financial bounds or anything holding us attached to the university, other than the fact that we rent space on university property.
You guys rent this?
Yes,
With money?
correct.
This isn't like a club that's like afforded a room?
Nope.
Interesting.
We're a complete organization and business, nonprofit, basically just trying to pass out information and
Oh, so you are like other newsrooms.
Yeah.
You have no funding. I get it. Do you think in some way Penn State is just trying to shut down the Collegian in some capacity?
I mean, it raises the question, right? I mean, everything you just kind of stated, it kind of throws it into your face like, oh my gosh, like the puzzle pieces seem like they're finally working, right? I think it's kind of funny how there was only 3 Kamala Harris ads running, but there was also 6 voter registration ads running. And those were ultimately had to be taken down as well. But the university also has a very big thing that they, want you to tell your friends to vote. And they want you to go out and tell your friends to vote and scan the QR code and register to vote. It raises a huge question. I think it's a very funny time, and I think it's very ironic, the timing that it happened. Also on that day that those newspapers were ultimately taken, Charlie Kirk was also here, and they ended up shutting down that as well. The university shut that down as well. So I don't know. It raises it raises a lot of big question marks that we are still trying to find answers to, and but I think it is very ironic, the timing of it.
And the background of it, like in my history, I grew up Pennsylvania, Philadelphia area. I attended college at Temple University, and I visited Penn State a lot. And Penn State, it always struck me as a place that isn't extremely political. This is not the place where you're going to find your massive protests or radicalism, or this is not that. These are smart kids that want to get good grades,
Absolutely.
have a good time, and get out. So why is Charlie Kirk even here? And why are they cracking down so heavily on you guys for running an ad, which they have forced you to do by pulling funding?
Yeah. I don't have an answer. I don't have an answer to that. I don't know why Charlie Kirk was here, but I ultimately, I think in recent years, since I was a freshman, I'm a junior now, there has been, I feel like our school has gone to a little more of the political side. We have seen more political activists, and there's different groups that are, bringing in different speakers of that sort that have actually caused protest. We had a really big protest freshman year because one of the Republican groups here had a speaker, and then that was ultimately shut down by the university as well. So I think it's kind of a trend that we're seeing a little bit the university take, and I think it's more of on the safety side, I think. But obviously don't quote me on that.
Well, safety side for shutting down speakers, that makes sense. That's crowds. But an ad for Kamala Harris is that's probably one of 5,000 ads that someone's going to see for a politician that day.
Yeah.
And it's literally just a picture on paper.
Yeah. We had received a couple things from the community saying that it sparked violence because Kamala Harris's motto for her campaign slogan is "When we fight, we win." So that was like a thing that we had seen from the community as well.
Someone said that?
Somebody from a community member emailed me,
Okay.
which we responded to effectively and quickly. But I don't know. Like I said, we've done political ads in previous years. I didn't think it would be an issue to, just run another one of the. I mean, obviously we are a news outlet. We provide factual news to the community, and one of the biggest things happening right now is that election day is less than 30 days away. So we thought, just because she paid for it, and her, it goes through an agency, and the agency signed up to do it. We didn't really think that the steps that happened after were the correct ones and the actual right way of going about that. But
so you're still kind of unsure what
correct
what the deal is, and
Yeah.
you're going to have further conversations with the university. I
Absolutely.
assume?
Yeah, we just received notice that we're going to continue those conversations in person, which is really good to hear. That's definitely a step in the right direction. I think something that me and the editor-in-chief Amy are really concerned about is to make sure that this doesn't happen further down the line. Obviously, elections happen every 2 years, and we want to make sure that especially if we're not receiving funding from the university, that we can continue to do our political advertising because we make really good revenue. We have a really good revenue stream with political advertising. So we want to make sure that this doesn't happen down the line, and we want to make sure, and we want the questions as to why were we censored, why were our newspapers taken, if the real problem was the ad on those news racks.
Interesting. Is there anything else that you think the people at home should know about this situation?
Oh my gosh. Like I said, it's a very gray area. And as journalism students, I could tell you our whole organization was kind of thrown back and, kind of taken back by, how this actually went down and thinking this can't happen to us. And other news organizations across the country need to be aware that, if you don't have a decent relationship with your university, make sure that you do have one. You could be independent, but make sure that you guys have, a common, agreeance that, we are as important as the university, and we are here to provide factual news to the students, regardless if that's for voting, regardless if that's for a political candidate, regardless if that's, a crime downtown. So make sure that you guys have a backup plan and a plan ready to go, and then continue business as usual. We're only here to support the Penn State students, the Penn State community, and we're going to continue to do that even though that we are in a crisis mode right now.
There was some people that were upset about the fact that we ran a Kamala Harris ad. Running Kamala Harris ads in like a paper and stuff like that's been standard practice for us, and running ads on newsstands and papers on the website is standard practice across the state, especially in a swing state. The revenue is really crucial to a lot of local papers to sustain their journalism during election season.
Well, thank you very much for your time. Amy Schaer.
Yes.
I'm Jason Peters for Status Coup.